Hey, what's up? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. Now, usually when I'm sharing music production tips and techniques, I'm doing so using Ableton Live. It's the DAW of my choice. It's what I use when I'm producing and working on projects, also in a lot of these tutorials. And so I get a lot of people requesting, how can I get the results when you use certain plugins that can only be found in Ableton Live? In this case, Ableton Live's Drum Bus plugin. It's a great plugin that utilizes saturation, transient design, bass enhancement, and it's all in one package, one plugin. And so what I want to do in this video is show you how to get the same similar results using stock plugins in Logic Pro X. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
All right, so let's start with listening to the drum groove with no processing. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now let's go ahead and process it with the drum bus. And what we'll do is we'll tweak it with some of the parameters on here and then try to replicate that same type of sound and get close to that sound using the plugins in stock Logic Pro X. So let's start with adding some drive. Now here in the drive section, we're adding different types of drive saturation to the input signal. So these are different types of distortion that's going to be added or different types of drive. So we'll start with the soft. Head over to the medium. And the hard drive gives a little bit more bass boost when you choose that one. So I like the medium. We'll stay with that one. And now let's give it a little bit more crunch. This is going to add some saturation to the mids. And then the damp here, this is going to EQ or dampen the output signal. So once you've processed everything, you can use this to dampen or pretty much just use a low pass filter to warm up the sound. And then we have this nice transient designer here to accentuate and bring out some of the transients in the mid section. That's cool there. And then let's give some low enhance here by bringing up some of the sub-harmonic frequencies. Let's listen into what we're doing. All right, and so there you go. Now what's cool is here we can actually extend what the low end is doing, so we can increase the decay to get more release of that low end boom or the low end excitement that we're adding to the bass boost. Now there's an onboard compression, and you really, once you just enable that, it has some built-in settings already. You can determine how much compression by just trimming the input signal down a little bit. So this is without it. Now this is with the drum bus. And then you could do a dry and wet to determine if you want to do parallel processing so that you can hear a little bit of the dry and a little bit of the drum bus effect. So now I've imported the original drum loop as well as the drum loop being affected by the Ableton Live drum bus into this Logic Pro X session. So we have the Ableton Live drum bus here. Here's the drums. This is what it sounds like. And that's the drum loop being processed through Ableton Live's drum bus plugin. And then here is the dry drum loop. So now let's go ahead and use a couple of the stock plugins to get close to that sound. So I'm going to start with some overdrive. I'm going to head over to the distortion, head over to the overdrive, and choose stereo. Now this has a tone knob, which acts like the damp EQ on the drum bus, but we're going to leave that at 20 because we're not going to dampen that yet. We want to do that at the final stage. And here is the drive. So let's just go ahead and crank that up. Okay. And now what we'll do is add that crunch knob as we remembered in the drum bus. So for that, I'm going to go back to the distortion catalog and we're going to look for distortion 2 and I'm going to hit stereo. And this is going to give us a little bit more of that crunch that we're looking for. So I'll bring the pre-gain down to 0. Instead of nasty, let's just choose class AB soft. And then go ahead and give some drive. And then we can shape the tone. Let me go ahead and solo the drum bus from Ableton Live. Now on the Ableton Live drum bus, we were using the transient knob to bring up some of the transients in the drum loop. So for that, we're going to head over to the Dynamics folder and we're going to use the enveloper, choose stereo. And here we're going to use this pretty much to kind of get the same results, just accent the transients a little bit. So let's start with bringing the threshold up and raising the gain of that attack. So we want a punchy attack, punchy initial transient here, and then we can determine a really quick release here. So let's go ahead and check it out. So that's what that's going to do is that's just going to accent the initial transient and we can mess around with the release here. So this is cool because you have a little bit more control over how you're going to shape the actual release of the transients. And if we wanted to go backwards, well, we'll basically reduce the gain here, just like this. So for now, let's go ahead and boost the transients, make it short, bring the release down, bring the gain up here. All right, now let's add that subharmonic frequency, almost similar to the boom or the bass boost that we heard in the drum bus. So let's go ahead over here to specialized and choose sub bass. Hit the stereo, and now we can go ahead and add some extra subharmonic and enhance the lower end. So I'm going to put the draw all the way down, and you might want to use headphones or listen on studio monitors so you can actually hear what it's adding to the drum loop. And so you would hear then determine where the main center or the main focus of the frequency, I think we have it over around 50 or right around here. We'll leave it there. And then on the top, you can actually bounce between the two here, more this one. And so I'll leave the top alone where it's at. Actually, I'll just lower it right here around the same ballpark and just blend this in. We'll put the dry signal all the way at 100% and just blend in the wet signal. Without it. Cool. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit of compression. And so we'll go over here back to the dynamics, compressor, stereo, and we'll just go with the stock compressor here. I'm going to take the auto gain off and set that over here for the auto release as well. So I'm going to give a slow attack and a quicker release. And now we'll go ahead and use a one-channel EQ to dampen the whole signal. So for that, we'll go to EQ and just use single band EQ, stereo. And let's go over to high cut and then choose So let's compare our drums to the drums that have been processed through the Ableton Live drum bus. So here's where we're at so far. All right, so it seems like there's right, so it seems there's like a bit more punch. And so let's head over to our plugins here. And I'm going to rearrange a couple of things. I've moved the compressor right after the overdrive, and I put the enveloper at very end, right before the EQ, just so that I can bring up the transients of everything that's being processed. So this will be at the end. And what we're going to do is open the attack time a little bit more, so it breathes, and we'll open up the release a little bit more as well. And then let's lower the threshold. Let's take a listen. All right, let's compare the two. So it seems like the punch is there. I just want to go ahead and maybe brighten this up just a little bit. So maybe just open that up and now, the convenience is having all of these plugins in one convenient plugin in the Ableton Live drum bus. But there's also a cool plugin here in the multi effects called Fat Effects that do include a lot of what we've just covered, such as the bandpass here, so you can eliminate any of the low end, the high end here, which would be kind of similar to the dampen. 3 different distortions that you can add, so you can go through them. I would put the tube for the drive, and I would actually just go with soft saturation for the drive that we did, and then tube for that crunch. And in bass enhancer, you can determine where you're tuning it and the amount. Compressor is already on there, and so you can also route what's going to affect what down here, the chain. And then I would use this coupled with a enveloper. So it would really just be these 2 effects here, because I would choose the enveloper as the transient designer. And there you go. So, that's one way of kind of combining all that into one, and being a little bit more efficient and just using 2 plugins as opposed to all these. But I kind of want to walk you through how to use all of them, in combination to get the same results. And then you would save all this in here. You would save this as a channel strip. So you go to save channel strip setting as, and it would appear down here in this menu. And then you could easily just click that and use that at any time you wish to use these drum bus settings that you've created in your Logic Pro sessions. Well, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe, like this video so you can stay up to date with more and upcoming videos that can help you take your next step with your music production.